Alright, what is up, guys? Sorry about that, my PC absolutely died again, bitch. Glad it didn't do it while we were doing the ending of Final Fantasy VIII. However, Janie's in bed right now. She's just feeling a little unwell, but she is listening to the stream, and I think she's on chat on her phone, so she may still be able to, you know, communicate with you guys. So yeah. Yeah, so let's kick off where we left off. So Golden Sun sent in those two really awesome pictures of Odin and Diablos, and Janie also showed me a really cool picture he made of me wearing a Metal Gear shirt. It looked really cool. Hold up, Golden Sun, do you have that in your do you have a link for that, man? If you have the link, I'll be able to open that up and show the stream it if you like. The one with Cool King made this. Whatever. It was a picture of me apparently wearing a Metal Gear shirt. It looks strangely accurate. I think he lives near us. Ingu. Alright. Let me just punch that into here real quick. This is where it turns out to be a big fat penis. Yeah! Yeah! Keep being awesome, Snake. Thank you so much, man. From Golden Sun. That's so cool. I love it. I love it. It's awesome as hell. Yeah, there it is. Alright. So, with the end of Final Fantasy VIII, there was a lot to digest, wasn't there? It was a really overwhelming, very emotional, but very information heavy as well at the same time, which I really love. I love endings that can go here, there, or everywhere. You know, I also like endings that, you know, are very simple and straight to the point. But there's something about the possibilities to theorize and to really peel back layers of a potential story when it comes to a game with an open end like Final Fantasy VIII. There was closure, but yet there was also mystery to it at the same time. So Final Fantasy VIII's been out since 1999, and since then it's been able to get a ton of fans. I'm a very, very recent loving fan of the title, obviously. But fans have been around for years and years and years and years, and in that time they've been able to work together, come up with theories and ideas, and really study the game's events to the point where they've come up with these really in-depth analyses of the story's events and ultimately its ending. So we got one website here called Squall is Dead. So I'm guessing that's one theory, that Squall died, and I'm guessing this is going to be one that has a lot of traction. I doubt a theory with not a lot of, you know, relevant points is going to make quite a big impact. But apparently Squall is Dead is meant to be a big theory. So I've honestly, my initial thoughts of the ending was either they were stuck in time compression, or perhaps there was something very sinister that happened to Squall. I don't know. But what I did gather is that, you know, there is this kind of eternal loop. There's this kind of predestined. It's fate, isn't it? It's going to constantly repeat itself. Like the reason why we were fighting Idea in Disc 1 as the sorceress is because of the ending where Ultimecia approaches them and Idea absorbs her powers. And then the reason why Seed exists and we're on Seed is because Squall comes up to Idea before Seed is established and says it was your idea to create Seed to destroy the sorceress, you know? Like these are all his ideas, like the salute he gives as well, and of course that ends up being the salute and stuff. And the reason why Idea is the sorceress is because she wanted to protect the children, so little Squall as well. So yeah, that's what I got from it. But then there was a really like really intense ending with Squall. It seemed to like he was either losing his consciousness or he was forgetting his memories. He was kind of losing himself in this what looked like a really barren wasteland he'd been walking for hours, but when it zoomed out, it was just this little patch of rock. It was really like whoa, whoa, whoa. It kept on being a bigger mindfuck. So, one theory, Squall is dead. We're going to be reading this theory out. Let's see how long it is. Whoa. Right. Let's start. Welcome. Squall's dead. Oh god, what a horrible start. Discusses the possibility of Final Fantasy VIII storyline covertly revolving around the death of its main character early on. A theory which, so far, appears to be undiscussed on the internet. We will attempt to explain the basis of the theory and argue why it may be true. At the end of the article, we can see that there is no real proof, merely suggestions and hints. However, we hope this analysis will add meaning to the game for all players, perhaps refreshing its value over a decade since the game's release, and inspire a discussion as it did between us. With that said, let's get on with it. Ooh. The theory. So what is the actual theory? At the end of Disc 1, Squall and friends face Idea on a parade floating in Delling City. After the fight, when Idea seems defeated, she conjures an enormous ice shard and propels it through Squall's chest. Squall stumbles back and falls off the platform. He sees Rinoa above, reaching to him as he falls. Squall closes his eyes and dies. The entire remaining game time from the beginning of Disc 2 to the second half of the ending movie is a dream. Well, so what do you think of that instantly? Just going off of that possibly Squall died at the end of Disc 1 when we did actually end up taking an ice shot to the chest, didn't we? But we woke up in the infirmary, I believe. It was like the infirmary or in our bedroom, in our dorm, at the beginning of Disc 2. So, yeah, I mean, it could happen, and there's a lot of dream sequences in the game, isn't it? There are a ton of dream sequences where you're going through the whole Laguna thing. So the whole potential of a dream being in place, it's not so crazy, but right now, I'm not convinced. I don't think he died, but right now, it's just a theory. We've yet to see the hints and reasons as to why this theory is in place. So, a dream? A dream. A fantasy, a vision, or whatever you want to call it. The dream is basically an extension of the your life flashes before your eyes concept. The entire dream takes only a matter of seconds, but for Squall, it passes in real time. For Squall, it's about the endless possibilities he could have seen realized. Squall explores the questions that were raised on the first disc, but he was not able to answer in his lifetime. These questions include, but are not limited to, who is the source of Sadea? What are her goals and motivations? Where do her powers come from? Why was Cypher in the parade with Adea when he was reported executed? Who is the girl alone that Squall and Kuru saw in the Garden Training Center? Yes, I'm sticking with Kuru. Who is Laguna, and why did Squall, Selphie, and Zell all have the same dream about him? And most importantly, who is Squall? Who were his parents? Why did they leave him at the orphanage? Where does he come from? And what would he have done with his life had he not died? So far, raising questions. Again, I'm not buying this. I'm not buying this myself right now. I feel that too much relevant and connected stuff happened in the game for me to go, he died and the rest is possible. Like, you know, what may have happened in his mind. That sounds a bit, I don't know, but again, we'll go on. Standard interpretations of the story. Today's understanding of the events of Final Fantasy VIII comprise a mixed bag. Most people focus on who Ultimecia is, what her motives are, and what happens after her defeat. This has led to the misinterpretation of the evidence and symbolism pointing towards Squall's death. Some evidence that formerly appeared to be vague and inconclusive now represent clear allusions and references to the subtlety of Final Fantasy VIII's obscured meaning. In fact, the popular opinion of Final Fantasy VIII falls exactly in line with the nature of the elements of the plot that are consistent within the dream theory, and those that are not. For instance, one of the biggest criticisms of the game is that the orphanage plot twist appears to be completely random and out of nowhere. I don't think it was. It wasn't a complaint of me. It fit, it worked, it made sense. If anything, the orphanage sequence kind of went boom. Oh, wow. So that's why. And the reason why, it seemed random and out of nowhere was because everyone had that experience with the GFs, and thus it started to eat away at their memories. It started to kind of consume their consciousness, I suppose. And the reason why Irvine was able to kind of make sense of it all was because he hadn't been dabbling. He wasn't a seed. He wasn't dabbling with GFs, and so his memory stayed perfectly intact. And thus he was able to... That's why he got nervous and hesitated with the shot against the dead, because he saw her as matron, not this evil sorceress who needs to be assassinated, like everyone else due to their experiences with the GFs. Alright, it appears to be too convenient. Or how could all the main characters have possibly grown up together in the same orphanage? The brilliance of the dream theory is that it addresses concerns like these and offers a logical explanation. Now, yes, everyone being in the orphanage, that is something, isn't it? That is... I'll give it that. Everyone in the orphanage? Everyone? I mean, the creativeness when it comes to making a story is that you can do that. You can just go, well, they just fucking were, But yeah, I do admit that everyone being in the orphanage, now that is quite a coinky-dink, isn't it? Supporting evidence. You've become just a memory. In the latter half of Disc 1, 2 conversations take place concerning Cypher's fate, and if he will be executed for attacking the president of Galbadia. During these sections of dialogue, Squall muses to himself of the existential qualities of death. Would they talk about me this way if I died too? Squall was this and that, using the past tense, saying whatever they want. So this is what death is all about. In this manner, Squall considers his own death and what little difference it will make for the world. This serves as foreboding and an ominous suggestion to the viewer that ill times are ahead. See, now that was a big part in our playthrough, wasn't it? When Squall absolutely lost his shit. He absolutely went like, no one's gonna refer to me in the past tense. Fuck you. He just full on books it. That was really from left field, wasn't it? That just came out of seemingly nowhere. Like something like people don't normally react like that in that way, do they? When it comes to reminiscing on someone who has passed on. They don't suddenly like lose their shit and go, no one's gonna refer to me like this, fuck you. He had some kind of really, like, something stirred in him at the idea that he was a past thing. He was no longer present. He was, he used to, he no longer, Also, note this excerpt from the first conversation concerns Cypher's possible execution. Think what you want. Reality isn't so kind. Everything doesn't work out the way you want it to. That's why. As long as you don't get your hopes up, you can take anything. You feel less pain. Anyway, whatever wish you have is none of my business. So yeah, Squall kind of tells you that reality ain't so kind and everything doesn't work out the way you want it to. So the idea is here, I suppose, that with the ending, we see everyone partying hard with the homemade, video and shit, and everyone's having a fun time, and then of course Rinoa and Squall, ta-da, they're together and shit. That was really nice. That was a really nice bit of happiness and positivity and just good to just finish it off. But think what you want. Reality isn't so kind. Everything doesn't work the way you want it to. Here Squall states the obvious. Shit happens. People die and there's nothing you can do about it. That's just the way the world is. Everything doesn't work out the way you want it to. Not only is this foreshadowing, but it's also contrary to what some consider a central theme to Final Fantasy VIII's story. Fate. We'll come back to this point later. Now, these people have tackled my interpretation, like my initial kind of reaction to the story is like, oh, okay, so it's all interlinked and it's all like it's a reoccurring kind of event where Squall kind of suggests Squall is the reason why Ultimecia ends up going to Adea, because he kicks the shit out of Ultimecia, ends up in this time warp, and is at the orphanage when baby Squall is there as well. But then Ultimecia is there after the fight, motherfucker, But then she wants to take over Adea so her powers can live on. But then also Ultimecia can die in peace. So that's the reason why Adea is an evil sorceress. And then it's also, and then Squall, of course, brings up the idea of seed, its purpose, and the salute and everything. So that's why seed is formed. So it's kind of like Squall created seed and ends up becoming a seed member, you know. So yeah, so the whole fate thing. So that was my kind of interpretation. My wound? No wound? The attempted assassination of Adea by Seed at Delling City at the end of Disc 1 is where everything starts and ends. Squall engages Adea and Cypher in battle on the parade float. After the battle ends, Adea casts a spell on him. So we all know what that spell is. She summons ice above her. It's like above her head, and it lunges straight into Squall's chest, who then falls backwards off the float with Rinoa reaching down to him, kind of like crying out. After the encounter between Squall and Adea, Squall wakes up in a cell in the Galbadian desert prison. Ah, yeah, there we go. His first dialogue is, "Where am I? I challenged Adea. My wound? No wound? How? The Galbadian soldiers. We were surrounded. He was there, Cypher, leering down at me. Damn you, Cypher." Apparently Squall is healthy and good to go. It is never again referenced directly in the entire game, nor is it ever explained what happened to his wound or how he survived. And remember, a piece of ice half as long as Squall himself went through his chest and came out the other side. This is no mere scratch that is so carelessly tossed aside. Most players seem to assume that Adea healed Squall to full health for the purpose of interrogation, but why would she? Cypher knows that Squall is no great captain from Balam Garden. He's no more privy to top secret information than are the other three. If Adea wanted to know more about Seed, she should be interrogating Kuru, who's been the Seed for 3 years and who has been teaching Seeds for 1 year. Squall has been a Seed for 2 weeks. Why go through all the effort of killing him just to bring him to full health when he's obviously a threat to her? So yeah, there's a Squall falling down with the ice shard in his chest. So that makes sense, doesn't it? We kind of pass off the fact that we got, I think in a world of fantasy, magic, and reviving people, curing people, that kind of thing, it's easy to kind of shrug off a seeming instant full recovery from a shard of ice to the chest when such features are in the world. You know, where you can just instantly heal and revive people with items and spells. But then again, you've got to take into account that there are I'm not going to spoil anything, but there are events in other Final Fantasy games where characters' deaths play a big part, where someone dies and that's it. You can't bring them back. Even though if that very same character was to fall during a battle sequence, you could bring his ass back up with a Phoenix Down, with a revive, you know, and then keep him alive with cure. It'd be absolutely no problem. But for the sake of story, the character has died and thus it is impossible to get him back. I don't know what's going on anymore. As some of you may have noticed, the plot takes a few unanticipated turns after the end of Disc 1. At first, the transition is rather subtle. When plot twists are introduced, they are fully explained and are not in conflict with existing plot information. In fact, the more you learn about this world, the more everything seems to make perfect sense. Everything fits together in an elaborate but perfectly designed puzzle, absolutely. Everything connects and everything is related, and yet it still seems absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't seem ridiculous. I think at first it's like, what's going on? But then the more you get into it, the puzzle starts to unravel like your typical story would. It starts to unravel, and it may unravel and you may be able to kind of see, oh, it's okay. Oh, whoa, wait, what? We just take a big turn. I didn't think it was going to go that way, and more be revealed through twists and turns until it makes sense. I wouldn't shrug it off as being ridiculous myself. The story takes on a dreamlike quality that centers itself on Squall and everything Squall has ever wanted. The dream goes on to explain everything Squall wanted to know, but it also treads through the realm of egoist fantasy. It spins off into a world of impossible where monsters come from the moon and Squall, merely a new recruited cadet, goes on to save our world as we know it from an evil sorceress from the future, and he gets the girl. Let's look at some specific examples. Okay, now that does make sense, doesn't it? It does make sense, because he even though he's the most promising member of Seed, like amongst all the candidates, he's still a recent graduate of Seed. And he ends up saving the world, going to the future, ripping the shit out of this future big bad space-consuming sorceress, and getting, the girl of his dreams. It's very fantasy, isn't it? Like, oh yes, that would just be amazing if that happened to me, It's kind of like when you watch a story or you play a game and you wish you were that person experiencing all that cool shit. Maybe it's kind of Squall's way of having his moment of, I wish my life was like that, But who knows? One word, Mumbas. It was all Mumbas all along. The little Cymbalines. As soon as I saw those red lion Pokemons running around on the screen, I knew there was something strange happening. Yeah, the Shumi's very... maybe because we didn't do the Shumi optional stuff. We dabbled in it, but we didn't really clear it. The Shumi was a really kind of fascinating yet really out there kind of race, how they kind of evolve, and it's whatever the passion is in their hearts, they can be whatever the fuck they want, it's like, whoa, that's really like crazy. The first disc had a fairly high level of realism, despite the fantasy and low sci-fi topics present. The characters were all human, and outside of monsters, there were no unearthly creatures to be seen. Rinoa had a dog that attacks her at times. By the way, the dog can spin fucking huge monsters and blow up, as earthly dogs are known to do. But there weren't any fluffy feline creatures running around yelling, Laguna, Laguna. Of course, Mumbas are explained within the context of the game. In the Shumi village, you can learn who the Mumbas are, who they evolve from, and so on and so forth. The game takes the plot developments of the dream very seriously, and treats them as truth, which makes the dream theory especially difficult to argue. Sure, all this stuff seems weird, but how do we know that's all intended to be a dream? Maybe the creators just thought it'd be cool to have talking cats around, and who knows, maybe they did. But I think it's more than convenient that the more fantastical elements, such as talking lions, do not appear in the game until after the moment where Squall may have died. So, what he's saying here is that, for the most part, at the beginning, the game sets off on a very straight, believable path, right? And then it ends up with us getting stabbed through the eye shard after the failed assassination attempt, and then from there on, instantly, bang, there's talking lions, there's people that can evolve into whatever they want and stuff, and then there's the whole future events, and we end up going into space and stuff, very, grand, fantastical, and big. It should also be noted that Mumbas, these benevolent creatures that try to help Squall and his friends escape despite their limited verbal communication, are actually lions. And lions, of course, are of particular importance to Squall, whose symbol is a lion named Griever. The Mumbas and the Griever's appearance in the final battle with Ultimecia can therefore be explained as manifestations of Squall's mind. So, it's kind of like saying, in my mind, like, if we were to, like, take me and put me in that situation, perhaps the Mumbas would be snakes. I would probably wear a snake ring, It's like my manifestation is because maybe the lion's a big thing to him, snake's a big thing to me, and as a result, that manifests in my kind of story. In a very crazy, but you roll with it, kind of like a dream. In dreams when crazy radical shit happens, you don't really question it, do you? It's not even you, it's kind of like a character of you. You just roll with it. You just do things. Maybe you end up doing things that you, in your conscious awake state, wouldn't even do, but in this dream state, you're doing it and shit. It's really crazy. And it just makes sense, no matter how mental it is. It's not until you wake up and look back at the story and go, look back at the dream and go, whoa, that was a really crazy dream, But back when you were doing it, it was just it's just what's happening, man. Let's go, go, go. It should also be noted, oh yeah, we already read that. Okay, for sure, 3 seconds, you're up. Okay. We already covered the Mumbas and the Shumi, but I still wanted to say, what the fuck? The Master God is a giant yellow sloth alien creature? You gotta be kidding me. I don't know about you guys, but this is typical dream material in my opinion. Of course, Norg and his kids are fully explained in the game if you take the time to seek the information they present. but there are no hints presented in the story to suggest this sort of twist was coming. When walking around the garden in the beginning of the game, you often see the cult-looking guys in red robes wandering around, sometimes conversing with you briefly. I more than once thought they looked a bit creepy, though, and I can easily imagine that Squall would have thought the same, and integrated their possible backstory into his dream. I gotta admit, when I did come across Norg and he ended up being the master, like, Norg's the master of the garden, and that whole conflict in the garden, and we ended up fighting Norg, who ended up being this big, custardy, melted cheese, like, motherfucker, I gotta admit, I was like, what just happened? You know, I just went, what? Yeah, so yeah. Not only is there no evidence leading up to this discovery, after Squall and friends kill Norg, that's it. Nothing happens. That's true. Squall speaks to Sid, but he doesn't even talk about it. I expected him to at least say, oh, by the way, Sid, I just killed the big slimy dude that was hanging around in the basement yelling orders and acting all powerful and stuff. Hope that's not a problem. There's no retaliation, no consequences, nothing. The story goes on as if Norg had never ever came into it. Totally, that is completely true. Norg was just a really left field concept, and you rolled with it because you just did, and once he was gone, he was out the picture. Chop chop, that's it, done. This really crazy fucking element came into the story, convinced you, and then disappeared with no trace whatsoever afterwards, and it convinced you. You went with it. So yeah. Also in the Norg section, another little twist comes to the surface. Sid and Adea are married. It's another typical twist. The only important older male character and the only important older female character married and have a backstory that goes back decades, and like Norg, it comes completely out of left field. The twist does not conflict with existing story information, yet it seems so out of place and unrealistic. I'm not even going to bother discussing the floating garden. You guys get that point. And now our school is flying. So yeah, I kind of am more on the side that Sid and Adea are totally believable. It totally makes sense, you know? And perhaps that could also help play into the idea that all the kids in the orphanage ended up becoming seed members. Hear me out. So we know that Matron is the one who ended up taking care of all the kids at the orphanage, right? And then all of a sudden, this teenage guy comes into the mix and is like, dun dun dun, he's all futuristic and cool and shit with his fancy blade made of gun metal. And then Matron's like, okay, what's the deal? And then there's this really freaky drag queen walking towards him. And there's this mysterious teenager goes, get back, Matron! He knows her name. And she's like, it's okay. I get it. She's a sorceress wanting to fucking die, but she has to pass on her powers at this point. And I've got kids to protect, and I'm a sorceress myself. I'm going to take this responsibility to protect the kids. You get out of here after sussing out who he is. Anyway, Sid is married to Adea, so Sid knows and cares for all the kids in the orphanage as well. But after learning of Adea's absorbing powers of the sorceress Ultimecia and her persona, and he knows the whole idea of Seed and their purpose of destroying the sorceress because of the future Squall that came into it. He's like, okay, fine, we need to make this seed thing a reality. And so he makes it reality, and he knows that Squall was the big baddie, well, it's like the big awesome dude of it all, because he's the one who managed to come from the future into the past and say all this shit. So he goes, okay then, he definitely needs to enroll in Seed, and because all these kids are orphans with no parents and nowhere to go, why not bring them? It'll be kind of like their school/home at the same time. So that would make sense as to why everyone in the orphanage ended up becoming a Seed, except for Irvine. But it does make that would definitely be believable and make sense as to why everyone's kind of stories and backstories are connected to one another. So yeah. Yeah. So that's another point onto the Norg thing. That's a point onto this theory. I totally go with that. But the whole Sid and Adair thing and the whole everyone's kind of fate being interlinked, it's definitely going to go on to what I'm just going to call my theory or fate theory. I'm going to put that onto that one, not onto this one, because for me, in my mind, that makes sense on the fate theory kind of sense, how we've done it. I've perceived it. I don't know how you guys have perceived it yourselves. Perhaps it's fate. And we're back to the fate question. What I wanted to point out on the subject of fate and destiny and all that hubbubaloo is simply this. The subject of fate does not come up up until after the end of disc 1. The word fate comes up only once on the first disc. When Squall and friends, Bitch and Camaro just joined. What up, man? How you doing? Welcome to the stream. Hope you have a great time here. The word fate comes up only once on the first disc. When Squall and friends get the last train for Delling City, moments before it disembarks, Irvine comments on the luck by saying, perhaps it's fate. After the first disc of the game, however, fate becomes a frequent subject of conversation. It's Seed's destiny to defeat the sorceress. It's Squall's fate to lead Garden. Squall is destined to face Cypher, etc. Fate becomes such a prevalent topic that many players come away feeling that fate was one of the most important elements of the Final Fantasy VIII story and the answer to all questions. I am one of them myself right now. I'm hoping that this theory is going to probably throw some insight my way. Fate is the reason why this lowly cadet instantaneously becomes the leader of Garden. Fate is the reason why everyone in your party apparently knew each other as children. Fate is the reason why everything falls into place like a perfect fantasy. Okay, now he says, I do totally get that fate is the reason why the lowly cadet instantaneously becomes the leader of Garden. Now that is really bizarre, isn't it? Because there was a lot of that. We had a lot of those overburdening situations in the game where everyone's like, what are we going to do, Squall? Squall! 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 It's all on you, Squall! What are we going to do? You know, and then everyone instantly looks to you when really you haven't... Why? Why me? Why me? You know, and Squall does that. He's like, you know, he face palms. He's like, why am I taking responsibility? Why am I the one who has to lead all this all the time? Why me? Why me? So yeah, that totally makes sense on the dream aspect. But fate is the reason why everyone in your party apparently knew each other as a person, as children. We already discussed that, and for me, that's already settled as the whole why everyone already knows each other as children. That makes sense to me as a fate thing, not a dream sequence. That totally, for me, that plays out as a fate thing. What's up, Jane? Oh, Janie forgot to tell us something about Ultimecia and Griever being there. Okay. Maybe it'll be brought up in this one. It got lost due to translation. What did? I don't understand. But what got lost? Ultimecia can manifest and give life to subconscious thoughts and inanimate objects. This includes giving life to Griever. Ultimecia manifests Griever from Squall's subconscious mind, having found Griever to be Squall's conception of the most powerful force that could exist. Okay, so Ultimecia ends up manifesting Griever through Squall's subconscious concept of the most powerful force, a lion of ultimate power and destruction. That's really cool. I like the idea of that. That's really cool. Yeah, I didn't know Ultimecia. But then again, Ultimecia, who seemed to have so much power and capability, that's not so crazy, is it? To really, that's the thing. There's no limits. There are no limits in a world like that where you're going through time compression, you're in space, and then fucking the future, the fucking past, magic. It's like, what? She basically plays on the fear of the people. Just stay close to me. Speaking of a perfect fantasy, the romantic storyline of Final Fantasy VIII is just that. The romantic plotline, which many fans consider to be the most successful element of the game, is completely fabricated for Squall's personal satisfaction. Not only does Rinoa show little appreciation for Squall through Disc 1, but there are many allusions to her ongoing relationship with Cypher. Yeah, that was really bizarre how she went on from being I'm in love with Cypher to I need Squall. Their relationship appears to have been on a sort of hiatus while Cypher was studying at the Balam Garden, but their affection and romantic connection is still in place when this story occurs. Yeah, and then Cypher ends up becoming the ultimate baddie who has no feelings for Rinoa, does he? He ends up throwing her to Adele and shit. If he really had feelings and was in a relationship with her, surely that would have played out a little bit more. There would have been more backstory as to how do you go from loving Cypher and then going to love Squall. I keep wanting to call him Snake. In the bathroom scene, Rinoa flirts with Squall casually, but appears to take no actual interest in him as an individual. She tells him honestly as she drags him out to dance that she's waiting for someone else. Squall, I can't dance.
You'll be fine. Come on. I'm looking for someone. I can't be on a dance floor alone.
After a quick dance and swoon from the female fans, Rinoa wordlessly brushes him off and leaves to find Cypher. Her abruptness suggests that her real interest lies elsewhere. The next time Squall sees Rinoa, it's in Timber. Rinoa is overjoyed to see him, but only because he's a member of Seed.
Hey, you know from the party, so does that mean you're a Seed?
I'm Squall, the squad leader. There's two others with me.
Yes, Seed is here.
So, Here we also learn that Rinoa knows Cypher. From the party and from before, her demeanor suggests a fondness for him that she does not openly let on. Now, I actually end up consciously commenting about this, don't I, in the cutscene. She starts dancing with us and shit, la-di-da-di-da, but then she kind of just goes, bye, and disappears, and we're like, oh, what? We go walking off on the balcony, I'm like, and I say something like, oh, fine, bitch, you know, I don't need you anyway, you know, just putting on the attitude and shit. We actually comment on the fact that she kind of just, right, I'm done with you now, man person. Like, oh, okay, shit. So yeah, Squall. Oh, you were looking for the headmaster at the party?
You know Cypher?
Yeah.
Well, he's the one who introduced me to Sid. Sid is such a nice man. I really didn't think Sid would come out to help a measly little group like us. But after explaining our situation to him, Sid gave me the go-ahead right away. Now that you guys are here, we'll be able to carry out all kinds of plans.
I'm going back to the others.
Okay, let's go. Squall, is he here?
He?
Cypher.
No, he's not a Seed. See, and Squall ends up making it so that, I'm starting to be convinced, you know. After the events of Timber, when the party discusses Cypher's execution, Rinoa speaks more openly on her relationship with Cypher, and this would just make the whole game so much more tragic on Squall's part. Rinoa.
I really liked him. He was always full of confidence, smart. Just by talking to him, I felt like I could take on the world.
Your boyfriend?
Yeah, I don't know really. I think it was love. I wonder how he felt.
Yeah, do you like him?
If I did, I wouldn't be talking about it. It was last summer. I was 16. Lots of fond memories.
Lots of fond memories. So this isn't just some bullshit, you know. Yeah. Like, man, I treat them mean to keep them keen. You know, it's more kind of like, they seem like at least somewhat serious, but there's nothing from Cypher, there's nothing sort of like, no, I'm too busy being evil, because in my mind, I'm this person that you need to take on and that you want to love to hate. Firstly, Rinoa is obviously quite taken with Cypher. And though she doesn't classify herself as his girlfriend, she admits she thinks it may be love. This is not a good beginning to a love story for Squall and Rinoa. Secondly, Rinoa appears to fully dislike Squall's cold and introverted personality. She calls him mean, callous, insensitive, and chastises him for not communicating his thoughts to her and the others in the party. Rinoa does not show Squall the least bit of affection until the end of Disc 1, when Squall and Irvine save her from some strange iguana creature. In this scene, she clutches Squall's arm shamelessly in a traumatized state.
I was scared. Really scared.
It's over now.
I was scared. I was really, really scared.
You're used to battles, aren't you?
I couldn't. I just couldn't. I couldn't fight alone.
You're not ready for all this. Better get going. I haven't forgotten your order. Just stay close to me. A few moments later, at the sniper position, Squall considers the possibility that he may have to fight Cypher as an enemy. He mentions the possibility to Rinoa, who obviously may be heavily affected by Squall trying to kill a romantic interest. And Cypher does say something about a romantic dream, doesn't he? Who knows? Rinoa, Cypher's alive. He was in the parade with the sorceress.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Who knows? If I were to face the sorceress directly, would I have to go through Cypher? It's the way it goes as a seed. You can't choose your enemies. I may end up having to kill Cypher.
You're both prepared, right? That's the kind of world you live in. You've had a lot of emotional training, but of course I'd rather it not happen.
Rinoa appears to accept that if Cypher is protecting the sorceress, it is necessary to dispose of him. I think it's important to note at this point in the game, at the end of Disc 1, Squall is aware of Rinoa's relationship with Cypher and does not seem threatened by it. Furthermore, Squall does not want to kill Cypher. Squall and Cypher have a history of quarrels and petty competition, but Cypher is still a comrade. In the final exam in Balam, Squall and Zell work together with Cypher despite their differences. The only reason to kill Cypher is his apparent alignment with the sorceress, which is never fully explained. It isn't, is it? It's so bizarre how Cypher is just kind of like, he's absorbed, he's like infatuated, he's obsessed with this whole kind of reunion with sorceresses. It doesn't make sense on the Cypher part when you really think about it. So yeah, after Disc 1, the complexity of this situation becomes much simpler. The relationship between Rinoa and Cypher, the relationship Rinoa and Cypher had is never again mentioned, except by Cypher in the form of taunts during battle. Rinoa herself seems to have completely distanced herself from Cypher, and Cypher's enemy status is never again questioned. Cypher began as a rather complex character, an enemy at times to Squall and Zell, but still a friend in battle. He broke out of the Garden's disciplinary wing to risk his life for Rinoa, who found his courage inspiring. After Disc 1, he is a villain, and his only goal appears to be serving the sorceress. I personally expected Cypher to have been brainwashed or mind-controlled. Me too. And I spent a majority of the game waiting for Cypher to snap out of it and join Squall's team, but he never does. The story just accepts that Cypher is now evil and must be killed. It's so simple and, well, convenient. Yes, the whole Cypher situation is very bizarre, isn't it? Cypher, who was Squall's personal tormentor in rivaling school, has become a major villain to the world and all of his friends. And since Cypher is out of the way, his would-be girlfriend Rinoa is now single and apparently falling for Squall, though she never took an interest in him before. The end. Oh, poor Squall. At the very end of the game, just as you're beating the final boss, Ultimecia, she starts to say some strange things, statements that appear very out of context for a final battle. Reflect on your childhood, your sensation, your words, your emotions. Time. It will not wait. No matter how hard you hold on, it escapes you. When I read those words, a chill ran up my spine. With every attack, you bring down Ultimecia's hit points, and you bring Squall's dream to a close. Squall, oblivious, fights on, and only his figment of his imagination seems aware of what is happening. There's a short story segment here involving Squall going back in time to the orphanage and seeing Ultimecia pass on her powers to Adair in the past. And Squall leaves in search of his own time, and is shown wandering in a desert place. He appears to be lost in time and unable to find his way back to his normal time period. Squall finds himself on a small rock island, isolated and helpless. He drops himself on the ground, exhausted. Then upon catching a feather floating towards him, he finds himself where Rinoa is. He calls out her name and she turns to face him. This is where the weird shit starts happening. Rinoa turns to Squall, but her face is blurred. There's a shot of Cypher as the movie cuts to the ballroom scene. Here we see Rinoa again, and again she turns toward the camera as she did in the ballroom scene on Disc 1, but she's blurry and messed up again. The shot continues to repeat, and every time Rinoa's face Rinoa's face and form are blurred, and the effect seems to be getting worse each time. What is happening here? Now, I do find that it's very convenient. It's very noteworthy that that scene where she points up and she in the whole ballroom scene, and then she starts walking towards him, is on constant repeat. It's like dugga-doo, 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 and it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And why that scene? Is that because that's the first time he sees her, so it's kind of like the beginning, the start? That's where I want to go back to. I want to go back to the beginning of all of this? Or is it because he really has such few memories of her, and that's the only nice one he has? That's the only one where she's kind of focusing on him. I want to dance with you. I am yours. We're in a romantic kind of situation together. Though the reality was she was waiting for someone. Oh wow, thank you so much, Coffee Mug Man. I'm late. Yeah, we're discussing the game's theory right now. So perhaps that's the reason why he's constantly going over that. He's kind of cherishing or just going over and over and over again the only positive, embracing memory he has of her, because the rest was just what could be's and wishes and just what he really wanted to happen. It is my belief that as Squall's dream is coming to a close, he's starting to lose touch with his own memories. He's trying to picture Rinoa, the object of his fantasy, but he can't quite remember the shape of her face. He is going over that moment in the ballroom when he first saw her again and again in his mind, focusing closer on her face and trying to see her the way that she was. I have seen this specific visual symbolism once before, in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. In Eternal Sunshine, the protagonist, Joel, has his memory erased because he wants to forget his ex-girlfriend. But in the course of the procedure, Joel realizes what he is losing and tries to hold on to his precious memories. He tries to remember the things that they have already erased, just to find the characters in his memory are faceless, blurred beyond recognition. As Squall is visualizing Rinoa in the ballroom, we start to see some quick shots interrupting the movie. The first one, as I already mentioned, was of Cypher. What is noteworthy about the shot of Cypher is that it shows him in the torchlight from the parade float, where Idea tried to kill Squall with an ice spell, perhaps his final moments. Then, that is creepy. Then, some quick shots of Rinoa appear. They are as blurred as the Rinoa from the ballroom scene, but these images of Rinoa come from the scene where Idea makes her speech before the parade. Rinoa, who appears to be under Idea's spell, follows the sorceress outsee the screaming crowd. Again, the final moments before he's stabbed. Why these moments? We see some shots of Rinoa floating in space, and then they're back in the ballroom looking for Rinoa. Then there is another assortment of shots from throughout the first disc of the game. First we see the mechanical spider monster from the final exam in Balam, followed by a shot of each of the party members, but Squall, Kuru, Zell, Rinoa, Selphie, and Irvine in that order. The images of Kuru, Zell, and Selphie are from the final exam in Balam, and a shot of Irvine is from his introductory FMV clip. This is the shot of Rinoa. This frame was taken directly from the scene in which Squall was killed. Rinoa is turned into Squall, who has just been impaled. We see some shots of Balam Communications Tower, the Ragnarok, and there's a clip of Rinoa still blurred with her hair in the wind. A shot of Cypher pushing Rinoa into Adele goes by, then we see more of the Balam Tower, and a clip of Rinoa reaching to Squall from the parade float. It's all going back to the first disc event before we just get stabbed, and as we get stabbed, there's an explosion. And we see the arc from Delling City under which Squall died. The camera takes us through the arc, and we're back in the ballroom for more blurred face action. There are a lot of images in this section, including Idea from the parade float, Ultimecia, Rinoa in space, the eyes from the cast members fading into each other, and probably a lot more than that. There's also a frame from the last moment in the disc, the image of Squall's eye as he falls from the parade float. At this point, the movie, and for the last few minutes as well, Squall's life has literally been flashing before his eyes. I feel that there's a particular focus on the two main events of Disc 1. The final exam at Balam and the encounter with Idea on a parade float. But of course, the ballroom scene, which was of particular importance to Squall, is by far the most covered event in the first half of the ending FMV. However, As I've been mentioning throughout this section, there are also snippets of images from the latter half of the game, particularly Rinoa in space. At the very end of this part of the ending movie, we see Rinoa coming towards the camera, arms open for embrace as before. The closer she gets, the more obscured she becomes. And then we see our first shot of Squall. Whoa. Yeah, I saw that. That was really creepy. I remember seeing that really, really fast. This shot keeps me up at night. Seriously. Oh, yeah. Ugh. So far, the best analysis I have for this screenshot is that Squall feels empty, that he is losing his sense of self and everything that comes with it. He's having trouble visualizing his memories, or even remembering reality from fiction. Think back to what Ultimecia said at the end of the first battle. Reflect on your childhood. Your sensation, your words, your emotions, time. It will not wait, no matter how hard you hold on. It escapes you. His life is fading from him. You can't hold on forever. Ooh. Or they just wanted to give me nightmares. There is one last shot of Rinoa floating in space. The glass on her space helmet cracks and sheds and sends large pointed shards toward the camera. There is a sound, like someone being struck by a sword. We cut to Squall, eyes wide, a tear escaping him. He throws back his head and is consumed by white. Here's a video of the ending up to this point. And now, finally, Squall is dead. We see a white feather fall to the ground, and the screen fades to black. The last 10 minutes of the Final Fantasy VIII ending movie are, in the simplest terms, of heaven, or some equivalent thereof. That horrible Eyes on Me song boots up, and we see Rinoa wandering around. She finds Squall and holds him, apparently thinking he's dead. The clouds whirl open to the sun, so the sun can shine through. Pink flower petals swirl in the wind across a gorgeous green grassy plain, and Rinoa looks back to Squall with a look of amazement. Those pink petals turn to white feathers on the wind, and the movie cuts to Balam. At the Balam port, we see Cypher, Fujin and Raging, fishing in the same gorgeous sunny weather that Squall and Rinoa were experiencing. Fujin kicks Raijin into the bright blue water, and Cypher cracks up laughing like a schoolboy. Cypher, who I thought we had finally defeated for the first time, looks up and smiles at Balam Garden as Balam Garden sails by overhead. The movie cuts to Laguna, who's standing out at Rain's grave. We get to see Laguna propose to Rain in the past, and they embrace. Laguna is in the present sees Alone coming back to see him, and they look up as the Balam Garden goes over them as well. During the credits, they show a home video clip where all the characters get to act like complete retards. All the party members are there, celebrated, but Squall and Rinoa and even Sid and Adea are in attendance. Irvine dances like a goon, Selphie bounces around like an airhead, and Zell stuffs his face with hot dogs. Yay. After the final credits, we get to see the stuff that makes the fangirls go wild. Rinoa stands out on the garden's balcony and Squall under a starry night sky. She raises her finger just as Squall remembers, and Squall smiles back at her. One last thing. If this was really how the game was meant to be interpreted, why did they make the dream so subtle? I can think of 50 ways to make it more apparent to the audience that the events taking place after Disc 1 are not real. So if the creators meant for Squall to die, they also meant for his death to be obscured and subtle. We view the dream as if we are the dreamers. Yeah. And even though sometimes events take place that could never ever happen in the real world, we do not become aware that it is a dream. A similar plot, we kind of talked about this a few minutes ago, didn't we? A similar plot can be seen in the film Vanilla Sky. Just FYI, if you haven't seen it, don't read on. Spoilers, etc. I haven't seen it, but for the sake of the theory, meh. In which Tom Cruise plays a character who chooses to have himself put to sleep. At a certain point in the movie, he begins dreaming, and the entire remainder of the film is a fabrication of his mind. At first, there is a little indication that anything is amiss. There is little indication. The plot continues as though nothing is different, except of course that everything starts to go his way. After a while though, things start to go a little crazy, and he ends up awaiting the death penalty for beating his girlfriend to death during sex, while experiencing what appeared to be a delusion. Good God. And all the while the audience watches on in confusion, as unaware as the character that this is all just a dream. Now, the problem I had with Vanilla Sky was that they couldn't leave it alone. I think it would have been a really cool movie if they had left it up to us to discern what had really happened. Instead, we, the audience, received a full exposition dump in the final moments of the film as the character carefully explains to the protagonist and the audience that the whole movie was really just a dream. Maybe the only real difference between Final Fantasy VIII and Vanilla Sky is they just never told us what really happened. In Final Fantasy VIII, they let us live in the dream as Squall did, and we never know the difference. Conclusion. The truth is, I don't think there is a substantial amount of evidence to conclude whether or not the writers intended for the audience to interpret the game in this fashion. I choose to believe that this is how the game was intended to be understood because, to me, the game makes no sense otherwise. Everything that happens to the characters after the first disc is ridiculous. The ending is like recapping the game on acid. There has to be something more to the story than a simple hero takes all plot. Sometimes, while writing this article, I really felt that this is the real story of Final Fantasy VIII, but sometimes it all just sounds like poppycock to me. In any case, I think Squall's dead is an interesting theory, worth considering at least, and I hope you think so too. Thanks for reading. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Wow! Props to Deidre and Rahul, man. Very, very interesting theory. What did you guys think of that? What did you guys think of that theory? Oh god, have we got another theory? Alright, we got people saying it's bullshit. It's BS. Nope, nope, nope. I don't buy it. I don't want to believe any of this. But that's it though. Do you not want to believe any of this? Or don't you believe any of this? That's the case, isn't it? It's like no. They lived happily ever after. It was all great. It's perfect. It's perfect. Just leave it alone, you know? But reality isn't so kind. Not everything goes the way you want it to. But apparently we've got another theory to consider. I think I just skipped it. Where is it? There it is. punctualdork.com. Ooh, whoa. Rinoa equals Ultimecia theory. Okay. So before we get onto this one then, what are your thoughts on the idea, on the theory that Squall actually dies at the end of disc 1? Through the ice shard, he is killed. And everything in that moment, he is just a sudden, like all of disc 2, 3, and 4 is like a couple seconds of intense flashbacks of just his regrets, his wishes, his desires, his subconscious manifestations, everything, just in one big kind of like dump of just thought process. Honestly, I really like it. I really like it. What I like about this ending is that no matter what you say, you can't be certain that you are correct or you're wrong. That's what makes endings like this so great. And for me, this is why Final Fantasy VIII is head and shoulders over 7. One, because of the whole great fucking moments and the plot twists and whatnot. They were just really like, wow, you know. But the ending itself, you can either go, they lived happily ever after, or you can go, but did they? You know, I love it. I love endings like that. So for me, there may have been no need to kind of do the whole time compression thing, and it does get very crazy, doesn't it? We're dealing with time travel, we're dealing with past, present, future, we're dealing with shit consuming space and all that exists. That is very mental, isn't it? It's very fucking, you know, tinfoil hat kind of shit. But we end up going with it, and it's done in a sense where it's believable on a kind of real level, where we end up, if we kind of take into the whole reoccurring kind of events where, like we've said, that sorceress Dea ends up becoming the evil sorceress due to Ultimecia at the end of the game going back in time with Squall possessing her, and Squall then gives her the idea for seed that will ultimately help put down this evil sorceress, and it just ends up doing a never-ending, ever-repeating kind of cycle of events. So the fate theory is initially how I think you're meant to interpret it, and perhaps that's how you're meant to interpret it full fucking stop. But then why go through all that crazy, like the ending where everything is kind of being distorted and blurred, and it's all going back to just to the end of disc 1, just before you get stabbed, and you're really focusing on the idea of Rinoa like embracing you and focusing on you, because that's pretty much that was your last, or possibly even only, really cherished memory of this object of his desires and his dreams and wishes, embracing him. He was going to hang on to that as much as possible and relive that scene over and over and over and over again as many times as he could, because it's all he had in his final moments was that feeling, that memory, that moment. And it was quickly being taken away from him, hence the constant distortion and then the constant replay, because he's so desperate to just live that moment again. And if that's the case, God, isn't that game really sad? That game is like infinitely more sad if you were to take that theory into consideration. Really fucking sad. So yeah. So, and that's why I really like that theory. I really like that theory. I'm not gonna say that's the ending, but man, I'm gonna look at it as though that's a possible ending. And for me, that just creates an even bigger amount of layers, depth, and respect for the game, really, because you can actually interpret it that way. So, hell yes. Really happy about that. The theory is too sad for me to handle. Yeah, that's it. It's so much more sad, isn't it? Right. So, Final Fantasy. Are you seeing this, guys? Okay? You should be able... Yeah, you're seeing it fine. Alright, Rinoa equals Ultimecia. What? Hold up, wait a minute, let me put some Griever in it. It could be argued that Final Fantasy VIII has a confusing plot. Between the thematic use of military technology, ancient magic, time travel, and magical beasts, there's a lot of moving cogs to this narrative, and it can be easy to get lost or misunderstand what occurs in the game. I covered the events and concepts of Final Fantasy VIII's main narrative last year in another explained article, and again in the Squall is Dead theory. Oh, so we're dealing with the same authors, so the same mindsets. Okay, nice to see that they're going, it could be like this as well, it could be like that as well. That leads me to kind of put more respect and consideration to their theories, because they're like, no, this is this way, you are fucking wrong, because this is my theory, and this is how it is, okay? This is right. They're coming up with different theories, and that makes me go, okay, well, yeah, absolutely then, you know? But I neglected one of the leading arguments against the legitimacy of the presented story, that Rinoa and Ultimecia are actually one and the same. What? I wouldn't have thought that. Now, of course, there's that moment where Ultimecia possesses Rinoa, but they're actually one and the same throughout the game? Very... what? There happens to be a lot of conjecture surrounding this theory, with some people saying it's implausible, and others saying that there are too many parallels between Ultimecia and Rinoa to just ignore. Interestingly enough, a rumor has been popularized that Square Enix has disproved this theory. They have not, and I'll ask anyone who believes otherwise to provide evidence in capital letters. What the company has said in Final Fantasy VIII Ultimania, and that sorceress boasts the same lifespan as a human would. In a plot that is centered on time travel and suspended animation, mainly unorthodox things are possible. So, while I don't personally ascribe to this theory, it could actually fit into the narrative of Final Fantasy VIII. Today we'll detail the theory, its reasoning, the possible problems, and my thoughts. So what is the actual theory? After Squall's party defeats Idea at Galbadia Garden, Rinoa goes comatose and eventually awakes as a sorceress. Idea was being possessed by Ultimecia at the time, and apparently originally has received her sorceress powers from future Ultimecia when Squall and friends were still kids at her orphanage. This is because sorceresses have to pass their powers down to others before they die. The goal for Ultimecia at this point in the game was to use Rinoa as a temporary vessel before passing her abilities onto the more powerful Adele, who was on a space station being kept in stasis. Sorry, my throat is really killing me right now. Rinoa, however, still has sorceress abilities after Ultimecia jumps from her to Adele's body. She, naturally, is terrified of her new powers, as sorceresses have a tendency to go bonkers and try to dominate the civilized world. A conversation with Adele shortly after indicates that sorceresses are easily corruptible, unless they have emotional support from friends and valiant knight, Squall in this case. Ah, I see. Hence the whole knight thing, like, I will be your knight, I prefer to be called White Knight. Therein, the theory proposes that a series of events was sent into motion. After the conclusion of Final Fantasy VIII, leading to Rinoa's loss of emotional support and her eventual transformation into a similarly featured Ultimecia. Some proponents of this theory maintain that 1. A sorceress has an extended lifespan and will live much longer than a normal human being. 2. Rinoa wouldn't want to inflict the burden of being a sorceress on anyone else, and 3. Rinoa would have been driven mad by grief after Squall's eventual death and intended to compress time to regain her beloved. So she compressed time to regain Squall. That's the theory. Interesting. There's a bug on my screen. Get the fuck off. Get the fuck off my screen. So, the reasoning. Rinoa asks Squall to kill her if she goes dark side, and he eventually kills Ultimecia. This could be foreshadowing. The Japanese instruction booklet for Final Fantasy VIII indicating that Rinoa will end up being warped. Ultimecia's GF is named Griever. Yeah, but now we said something crazy, didn't we? We said something crazy that what if Squall ends up being transformed into a GF and becoming the ultimate GF under the rule of Ultimecia in the future, like as a, you know, a potential plot twist after we did the fight or something. We guessed upon that, didn't we? Well, it was a bit of a crazy, like, just like out of the blue moment from me, but yeah. With the same name and design as the ring Squall gives Rinoa in-game, the two characters share near identical facial features in all cutscenes, especially those towards the end of the game where their faces are often side by side. Now hold up, wait a fecking minute. During the final like movie, like the cutscene, there was like the repeating approach of Rinoa as in the ballroom scene. At one point later on, as it kept going and going and going, you'd get the occasional like a close up of Ultimecia's face. It'll like just go boom and then straight to Rinoa, and then boom straight to Rinoa, boom straight to Rinoa, something like that. So maybe that has some kind of who knows? Because when I started seeing Ultimecia, I was like, oh god, what? You know, I was thinking like somehow Ultimecia was either still alive or there was still something left to be done with her. They are the only sorceresses shown to have wings. Ultimecia with black wings, and Rinoa with white during her angel wing limit break. The possibility of the name Ultimecia being a translation or derivative of what? Artemisia. Now, this is now with Aerith and Eris. The intended name for a character in Final Fantasy VII was Aerith. It ended up becoming Eris in the English version, and it was confirmed to be a translated error of names. So this isn't too crazy. This actually has happened in the previous Final Fantasy. Of Artemisia, the wife and sister of the Grecian king Mausolus. Sorry if I'm ballsing up these words, I've never come across them in my life. Also, there are parallels between Mausolus and Squall, Artemisia and Rinoa, and Artemisia and Ultimecia. On the Ragnarok, Rinoa tells Squall that she wishes time would stand still. Ultimecia, on the other hand, intends to compress all the time into one moment. The location of Ultimecia's castle is above the seat at Idea's orphanage, close to the flower field where Rinoa said she would meet Squall. Dissidia, Final Fantasy, features ultimate weapons for Ultimecia that are named after Rinoa's weapons, Valkyrie, Cardinal, and the Shooting Star. Wow, that one's very interesting. Possible problems. Ultimecia has tried to kill Rinoa several times. If it had been her past self, killing Rinoa ultimately would have led to her own destruction, and while it can be argued that going insane or GF use made her forget this, that is also backwards reasoning. Rinoa can die and be absorbed into time in the final battle with Ultimecia, without the future Ultimecia being erased as a result. If losing Squall was the main reason for Rinoa going insane and becoming Ultimecia, it stands to reason that she would have recognized him, or at least acknowledged him in game instead of trying to kill him. She doesn't appear to have any relationship with the main characters. If it had been Rinoa, she would have been receptive to reminder, as we see others are after forgetting things due to GF use. The translated warp in the Japanese Final Fantasy VIII instruction manual isn't indicative of Rinoa becoming evil. In fact, the meaning of the word warp differs based on language. In English, it has a negative connotation. This isn't the same in Japanese. Ultimecia was also the name of a European artist whose life and times mirrored Ultimecia's to some effect. A documentary of Ultimecia was released while Final Fantasy VIII was in pre-production. It doesn't have to be an allusion to Grecian history. Or Grecian. The two characters seem somewhat identical, but it's clear that Ultimecia is significantly older than Rinoa. Also, we know that sorceresses cannot live forever. Griever was created by the images in Squall's mind. It is seen as the strongest GF because Squall believes it so, not because of the ring Squall gives Rinoa. If Ultimecia has forgotten Squall and everyone from her time as Rinoa, she wouldn't have parked her castle near Adea's orphanage. She can't have things both ways. You can't have things both ways. After the events of Final Fantasy VIII, during Dissidia Final Fantasy, she doesn't appear to have gone insane. In fact, she is just cold and calculating, like how the main narrative of Final Fantasy VIII presents her. Dissidia allows her to use weapons inspired by Rinoa's weapons, but at the same time, could be said about Cecile using weapons inspired by the ones wielded by Golbez. I don't know who these are. Tidus using whackers and Kuja using garnets. Oh, okay, so different characters use different characters' shit, so it disproves her using Rinoa's weapons. Final comments. I understand why this theory seems so attractive. Ultimecia doesn't actually have a lot of character depth, motivation, or backstory of her own, and this reasoning does spice up the game a little. Unfortunately, it's also dependent on circumstantial reasoning and working backwards from a foregone conclusion, which is never how a theory should be backed. In fact, you have to accept Rinoa equals Ultimecia as being fact in order to fully buy into most of these explanations. This is a logical fallacy, and there are just as many arguments against this theory as there are explanations based on circular logic. Leaps in assumption that have shaky support at best are usually defeated by Occam's razor, all things being equal. The most simple explanation is the best. There is already a perfectly reasonable and well-supported explanation of Ultimecia's origin. Had Ultimecia actually been Rinoa the entire time, I'd like to think there would have been more solid backing in-game, and Final Fantasy VIII Ultimania would have at least mentioned a link between the two. I do like this theory though. It does add an extra layer to the events. There just isn't enough concrete evidence to support it. I agree. It's an interesting theory, but it's very it's very not shallow, but very limp, very weak on the whole kind of evidence kind of backing, reasoning and whatnot. Compared to Squall being dead theory, this one doesn't seem as convincing. But it's another possible outcome. It's another possible theory to a game that has a really great story, and that again it just further proves just how much you can really get with Final Fantasy VIII. You can play this game, and someone can have one kind of experience, and one can have a radically, completely different experience, but they're playing the same game, and I love that. I love that games like that exist, where one person can play the exact same game, do the exact same shit, and interpret it and feel that they're on such a horrible, cruel, punishing adventure, while one can do it and it's like, yeah, and they live happily ever after, when the exact same events happened, nothing fucking changed. I love it. So yeah, So yeah, that really cool theory is really cool theory. So what do you think? What do you think is the reality for the game then, guys? I want to see what people believe. Do you think it was all fate, it was all predestined, and everything that happened was reality? Do you think that it ended up being a dream, and Squall ended up dying at the end of Disc 1, and everything afterwards was a flash in front of his eyes of everything that he wished could have happened, everything that he longed for and desired, and it was being brutally snatched from him in that final scene where it's all become distorted and he's trying as hard as he can to just claw back what little dream he had left. You think the fate theory is better? I always believe the fate theory myself as well. So fate. So yeah, we're gonna go dead or dream or fate. Dream or fate, basically. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard for me to really go dream or fate because, honestly, in terms of like what a twist, definitely dream. The whole dying idea. But, you know, you go on a long journey. It's full of hardship, whether you want to believe he died or not. It is full to the brim of hardship. And you try and try and try and constantly fight for what little bit of positivity and success you can get. And in the end, it's like, whew. And we all lived happily ever after. Yes! I'm so happy for you guys, you know? It's like kind of like that. You don't want that to not be the reality, do you? But then again, reality isn't so kind. Not everything you want works the way you want it to. The game says that. Endless cycle is grim, but death is too grim. Yeah, definitely. That's what I mean. You're either stuck with something that seems bad, but there's a little bit of hope and happiness in it, and then but then there's like no, and then he fucking died. That's the end. He fucking died. Well, that is... I think that's all the theorizing we got for now, I suppose. But yeah, what a way to kind of really send off this great title. A lot of fun. Really great game. I definitely recommend it. It's definitely for people out there that love to really put lots of mental energy, really think, really consider in the game. For people that like to run in a straight line and kind of, you know, have a story play out in front of them and they succeed in stuff, probably not for them. They'll probably end up kind of going, you know? And it'll probably get shit on in that process. That's probably why Final Fantasy VII was loved so much more than 8, because 7 was... You didn't have to put half as much like consideration or like theorizing or just really thinking. You didn't have to think half as much about 7 as you did with this. Nowhere near half as much. Holy shit. So yeah, I think Final Fantasy VIII is probably for those people that really love to really get into the nitty gritty. The Metal Gear Solid players, the MGS players, people that like to fucking go, right, here's this mental mess of a fucking story in a world, but it makes sense if you look at this in this way, and possibly this in this way, or it could be looked in this way, you know? So I think if you enjoyed games with really crazy stories, but, you know, but characters that really mean something to you, you'd really love Final Fantasy VIII, I think. But that's it, guys. That's gonna be the final stream based on Final Fantasy VIII. What a way to send it off by considering what the ending meant with everyone, getting everyone's final thoughts on it and everything. My final thoughts. I'd like for it to be the Fate ending, but I'm afraid that it is the Dream ending. I'm afraid that Squall is dead, because it speaks for itself. The evidence isn't, again, the writers, they say it themselves, there's enough there to make you seriously consider it, but there's not enough there, or there's enough for other theories that really makes you go, okay, well, I can't fully wholeheartedly go, it is this then, you know? There's no way to really go, it is this, and there's no way it can be rejected. There's no other way that it can be denied as fact, you know? But there's enough there to really make you go, it definitely could be. So yeah, so in a way you can look at this as though it's a very emotional, moving game, or you can look at this as one of the most tragic and devastating games, and honestly, one of the most well conceived and executed characters, and I'm talking about Squall, one of the most in-depth, like probing into a character's psyche, and it just his mentality, his personality, everything. I don't think I've played many games that come even close to looking at the kind of, like, who am I? You know? And I really do. I really relate with Squall a lot. I see a lot of myself in him. Definitely do. And I think a lot of people will as well, whether they're afraid to admit it or not. I definitely admit it. There's a lot of me. There's a lot of Squall in me. Definitely. No matter, like, you know, it's not like, oh, whatever and stuff. But in a sense, it is kind of whatever. I think his whatever kind of approach to stuff it wasn't shallow. It wasn't just simple whatever. You know, it was just, oh, whatever, I don't care. It was because that he didn't see the point. This is how it is and this is how it is. What is the point in talking about it? There's no point. Here's the facts. Here's the facts and that's it. I'm very much like that in a lot of situations as well. So yeah, really, but just in summary, great fucking game. Great fucking character. I really, really loved Squall's story. Whether he got happily ever after with, you know, all of his desires and ambitions fulfilled, or whether they were just cruelly snatched from him the moment he really realized what it was he wanted, where he wanted to go, who he was and what he wanted to be, it was snatched from him. And he just realized it in a flash of epiphanies and desperate desires, just wishing he could just have a second chance to make all of his dreams come true. Poor fucking Squall. So fucking tragic. So tragic. Wow. Amazing game. I definitely recommend it. Everyone who says it's shit, I don't want to generalize, but it's very idiotic. It's very idiotic to just look at what we've just gone through and go, it's fucking retarded, mate. It's shit game. Why don't you play Final Fantasy VII? He's got a bigger sword and shit. Bollocks. Fucking bollocks. Yeah. So what's next in store? Oof. What is next in store? I have no idea. I have no clue. Don't get me wrong, I don't dislike 7. I really like 7. I really like it. It was my introduction, and before 8, it was my only kind of experience and understanding, knowledge of Final Fantasy, of what Final Fantasy was, what it meant, what kind of series it was. 7 was all of that. Everything I knew about Final Fantasy was 7. That's it. But then I played 8, and it felt like it could be so... Final Fantasy is capable of being so much more than what I thought it was. Like infinitely more. I had no idea that the level of storytelling was this fucking good. You know? Not like, oh, it made me care about the character good. That's always a nice story to have. But it made me care about the characters. But then I could really break them down and really look in between layer and layer. Like, so, it's really, really rich, really, really deep kind of world and character development. Love it. And I didn't have that in 7. The characters were either just cool or they weren't. But in 8, they were more than that, you know? They weren't, I like him, I don't like him. There was depth, there was reason, there was so much going behind the scenes. But yeah, I think because Final Fantasy VII was the one that like everyone wanted, it was like, yeah, it's so good. That 8, no matter what 8 would have been, 8 would have got shit on. 8 would have got shit on, regardless of whether it was Final Fantasy VII, but Cloud had black hair now, or whether it was the Final Fantasy VIII that we know it, or whether it was Final Fantasy VIII that ended up being the most amazing game in the world. It would have got shit on because of the success in Hyper 7. There's no way of going, you know, kind of looking at it any other way, I think. I mean, you can, but I think when it really comes down to it, it's just people really loved 7 and was on the 7 bandwagon, and then no matter what came after, it was like, okay, whatever, but still not as good as 7. 7's the best. 7's the fucking best. You know, they just fiercely defend their first experience with the series, which may have been 7, instead of really go, okay, wow, 7 was great. I can't wait to see how they've improved with 8, you know? But it really makes me sad because we look at Final Fantasy VII probably going on till 10 or 9 perhaps, and everyone always looks at those Final Fantasies and goes, wow, yeah, that was when Final Fantasy was fucking Final Fantasy, yeah? That's when people really go, wow, that was amazing. But you know, I've yet to see people go, 13's the best one. 12 is easily the best fucking Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 14, motherfucker, best game in the world. You know, I don't know whether that's due to nostalgia and rose-tinted goggles or whatever you want to call it. Because I'm sure for Final Fantasy, it was a lot of people's first kind of game experiences, you know, like it was one of their first breaks into, you know, really gaming. Kind of like, say, on the same lines as probably like Pokemon for some people as well, you know. Final Fantasy was definitely not my first break into gaming. My first break into gaming was probably like either Golden Axe on the Golden Axe or Sonic on the Master System, or Wolfenstein and Doom on the PC. That was my break into gaming. That was when I got into it, and I got into it at like a stupidly young age, like 3. So yeah, yeah. So I don't know. It's hard to really know, because I haven't played any of the Final Fantasies of recent years, but I don't get that same kind of fan love and cherishing and just like, oh, I love this game. This game's amazing. You know, I don't get that like I hear with people with 7, like I've seen people here with 8, like I hear with people with 9 or even 10. But with like 13 or the recent games, people don't seem to really care. They go, oh, it's whatever, it's bullshit, it's crap compared to the old ones. Now I don't know whether that's the same people who said shit about 8 compared to 7, or whether it's people that loved 7, 8, 9. Probably 10, I don't know how good 10 is, but I hear people really like it. And I don't know if it's those guys, and they go, man, what happened? What happened to that great, rich series that we had? You fucked it! You fucked it! I don't know. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to really know what think of the series. I guess the only thing to do and to think is to just go experience it yourself. Experience it yourself and just go, was it as good? Is there a reason to, like, you know, keep feeling that, to keep putting faith into the team, into the series, you know, with each title you play? And perhaps you like it, perhaps there's another nail in the coffin for you, who knows? But then again, there's a lot of 15 as well. My only concern about 15 is it doesn't feel half as player in control. The only things I've seen is what, I don't know if it's gameplay footage. They say it's gameplay footage, motherfucker. The amount of shit that I saw going on the screen, I was like, there is no way that that a person is controlling what that character is doing right now. Perhaps they pushed X, perhaps they moved to the left. Other than that, I'm watching shit happening. So, I don't know. I gotta admit, I hope. Why would I hope for a game to be shit? I hope fucking Final Fantasy 15 is probably just gonna go, we're
back, motherfucker!
I hope every fucking game developer who brings out their next game is their best game. And then they bring out the next one, now that's our motherfucking best game. You know? That's what I'd fucking want to see. I want Final Fantasy 15 to be fucking amazing, man, so that people kind of get excited again. People get excited about the series that they love, because there's nothing sad about seeing people be once really passionate about something to just go, you know? So yeah, I'm gonna stay optimistic and go, there's a reason why Final Fantasy 15 is taking so long. Hopefully it's because they really want it to be as perfect as they can. Because I refuse to believe that the people that made Final Fantasy VIII the way it was are not capable of making greatness. Now, I don't know if the team has got the exact same members on it. I'm guessing they don't because a lot of time has passed. But if they haven't, I'd like to follow the fucking developers who made, like, the actual people who are now probably transferred on different teams. They may still be on the same team, I don't know. But I'd like to follow the people who made this fucking game. And I want to see other stuff that these people have made. I want to see other shit. Because, man, ground fucking breaking. Final Fantasy VIII was definitely before its time. And I think a lot of people just weren't ready for it. People are still thinking that games were confined. The idea of a game was still confined to things like Crash Bandicoot, Mario, Spyro, and just, you know, your typical brainless jumping and jump on the box. I love fucking Crash Bandicoot. I play the shit out of Spyro, motherfucker. At the end of the day, games, what makes them the best medium of all fucking time is the fact that you can do anything. You can do anything. It can be a mindless jump on the fucking box, or it could be the most enlightening, like, mind unlocking adventure you ever go on. That's the beauty. That's the appeal and the great attraction of games. So that's our end of Final Fantasy VIII. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I have no idea what we're gonna do next, but oh god, no, Vamp, stop! That is a really scary yet sad image. That is like, see what I mean? So it's something like that just makes you go no. And it makes me go no at the same time. I love it. So much emotion, so much like reaction to the things that I've experienced in 8. I love it. Really amazing game. I would say 8 is an example of games being considered art. Absolutely amazing game. Fucking brilliant. Go get it, go play it, love it. Though if you do get it on Steam, mod the fucking sound, because I can't even imagine playing it without it now. At first, because I didn't play 8 back on the PS1, I only played 7. I didn't get to hear the soundtrack for what it was and stuff. So when I was playing it on the PC, I wasn't minding too much. But everyone who played it on the PS1 was like, dude, the soundtrack sucks dick. Fix it. So I got the PS1 soundtrack onto it again. And it was amazing. The man with a machine gun. Maybe I'm a mother-sucking lion. The fucking card game spoiling. Oh my days, dude, get out of here. Get a PS2 emulation and play Final Fantasy X. Nero, no one do that. No one do that. I do not condone getting emulators. If you want to play Final Fantasy X, buy it on either a PS2 or get the HD version on Vita or PS3. Motherfucking Nero, do not drop me in hot water. Keep them thoughts to yourself. Alright, I will see you guys later. Take care of yourselves, man. Bye.